Okay, year 9. So we're going to talk a little bit about writing your conclusion and drawing your graph from your results that you collected earlier this week. Obviously, I will have run through this in the live lesson, and this is just kind of a reminder of bits and pieces. And if you want to check some of the graph drawing stuff. So first of all, your graph must have your 5 independent variable data points on it so that you can actually draw a trend line. Because we're in chemistry, we are not joining points together. We're not drawing a bar chart. This is going to be a scatter graph with a line of best fit that can then show the pattern that your results is generating. So as I will say in the live lesson, I really recommend you don't use Excel for this, particularly Excel Online. Google Sheets is free and it's much easier to draw the graph from. So just as a reminder, and remember, you don't need to worry about what this data is. It's from my medicinal chemistry course, but it will be a lot like your data. I've got 2 lots of data. In your case, you can imagine this is your time and this is the thing you changed. So with the Google Sheet, you can select your data, go to Insert, Chart, and at the top, the first thing it will show you is the chart type. So you need to make sure it's the same as I've got here as a scatter chart. And then you need to check your data range, your x-axis and your y-axis. Now, if you've taken any time measurements, remember time has to go on the x-axis so that your rate is something over time. So when you calculate your gradient, you have your y over x to calculate your rate of reaction. So x should be your time if you've measured it. If not, it should be your independent variable. So time on the x-axis, unless you have not measured time. So you should get a scattergram of your 5 points, a lot like this one. And then you would need to go into the customize. So when you're in customize, you get lots and lots of options, guys. So you can change the colors, things like that. You can look at different formats, that sort of thing. You want to go to series because at the bottom of series, it has what you need. So data labels you can have, and trend line is the one you really need to be looking at, guys, because you need to add a trend line to get your line of best fit. Now, in this case, my data is linear. So I do have a linear type set of results. Yours may look more like a curve. So if yours look more like a curve, you may have to choose one of the different lines. So you might need an exponential to follow the curve or a polynomial to follow the curve. You need to check you are using the best line to show your data points. The one that you wouldn't use is moving average because that will end up joining your dots and all sorts of things. So if your line, if it comes up linear and it looks like it's using most of the points effectively, leave it linear. If your points look more like a curve and your line is kind of doing something weird going near any of them, try the other options until it fits sensibly. You can also add the data label because it will tell you which each point is, so that when you are doing it, you are. And then there's this button down here that you may want to use. You can show R squared. That's the equation for your trend line. So if you put your equation for your trend line on here, you can drop things in. This is your rate of reaction because it's your gradient. So if you want to simplify things a little bit, guys, you can drop that in to work out whether your rate of reaction is going up or going down, because it's going to be a positive or a negative number. So you can use that. It only really works if your line is a straight line though. Try and avoid, I would avoid it if it's a curve. So that's the main bit about the graphs. What about your conclusion? The main thing with your conclusion is that it needs 3 parts, guys. Part 1, answer your research question. So the first sentence you should write in your conclusion is, my results show that the independent variable does this to the dependent variable. Okay, so even if you need to write your research question out again, this is my research question, and this is the answer to it. So very explicitly answer your research question. This is what my independent variable does to my dependent variable. And the second part is then to take the data off your graph to back that statement up. Now, if you've got no pattern in your graph, that's fine. You can say, my experiment results do not show any link between my independent and my dependent variable. And then you can use your graph and your data show there is no trend line, it goes up and down, there is no pattern. So it's completely valid to say that your results don't show a pattern, that there is no link between your independent and dependent variable, as long as that is what your graph shows. So you should be talking about there is a straight line of best fit that goes up, there's a curve that goes up and then slows down, whatever goes down and slows, either way, whatever your graph shows, you need to state that after answering your question. If you can pull numbers out of the table to back it up, that is even better. Okay, so you could talk about your trend line and then give some examples pulled from your data table. The third part is then to explain it using your science. So this is when you're going to need to go back, look at your rates notes and go, okay, so how did I've changed surface area? How should surface area affect rate and why? So I should see lots of sentences that talk about collisions per second here, guys. And if you've changed temperature, activation energy, all of that sort of thing, it should be very, very clear. I've changed this and this is how it's affected my rate of reaction. We've covered it to death, I think, now at this point. So your conclusion is those three sections: explicitly answering your research question, the data to back up your answer to support what you have said, and then the science that explains what you've said. Now, if you did get results which don't give any trend and pattern, your background science, you can explain what you should have seen. That's absolutely fine. The science behind it should show that X, Y, Z. But there needs to be some science in there, guys. Okay, hopefully you can remember it all.